Hello everybody, this is going to be my question and answers video, well the first video on it, because I got asked so many questions last week when I did this on Sunday that I have not been able to put anywhere near all of them down. So I have 2 pages of questions here, which is 37 questions, and when I did the video last week I had about 200 plus questions, so what I'm going to do here is answer, as I said, 37 of them, and some of them I noticed were duplicate questions when I was looking through people's questions last week, or through the week really. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully if there's duplicate ones I'll answer your question. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if I haven't answered your question in this video, what I'd like you to do is please just to re-ask it in the comments below, or if you thought of a different question, ask the question you want to ask instead then. And then I will try and answer all your questions as I go along. But if if for each time I don't answer your question, just keep asking it over and over again, and I'm sure I'll eventually get round to answering it. So the first 2, because loads of different people asked these, I've not put anybody's name down for these. I'm just going to answer it as best I can, particularly because I think I've answered these a load of times as well. So most asked question I think I got is, what is your favourite gas mask? My favourite gas mask is the Avon CT12. I've done lots of videos on it before. I think I have a video actually titled My Favourite Gas Mask, Avon CT12. I've also done another video of more of my favourite gas masks, so not my number 1, that's the CT12, but a couple of other masks I really like as well. And another question is, favourite NBC suit? Out of all the NBC suits I've got, my East German Type 1 NBC suit would be my favourite one. That's the full body suit. Because I've also got the East German Type 2 suit, which is the one with the trousers and top separately. The reason I like that is because it's an all-rubber suit, so it offers a much better level of protection than, the NATO type charcoal suits, even though they're more comfortable. But in terms of what my actual favourite suit would be, it'd be the one I've made with the waders. And also like the raincoat, I'll probably do another video on that because I've got a better raincoat configuration with it now, but it's a lot more comfortable and easier to put on than the proper NBC suits. So now let's start going through the questions where people have asked them, with actual their names on them. Right then, so Munsky Games said, I've got a question. How did you get into collecting not only gas masks but also like Cold War coats and deactivated firearms? Where did it start? Now, I'm not entirely sure where it all started, but my granddad was in World War II. He was in British Royal Artillery, and he talked to me now and again about stuff in the war, and I find it really interesting, and I think that started it off. But from a young age I found stuff really interesting about a lot of history stuff. Because if you think about the modern day, a lot of it's quite boring, so I'd find books and that about medieval warfare and stuff like that really interesting. So I'd read a lot of books about those. I suppose where you could say, where did it start, that would probably be my Finnish M61 gas mask, and I've done a video on that. But my mum bought that for me years ago, because she saw it in an army surplus store and thought I'd find it interesting. And, I did find it interesting. I like to wear it all the time. This is probably when I was like 10 or 12 or something. I like to wear it all the time. I thought it was a great thing to wear. And then slowly over time my interest in gas masks developed as I realised there was lots and lots of different types. Because I think unless you're into gas masks, you probably don't realise how many variants there are. You probably think they're all really similar things, but they vary so much that, that's not true at all. So yeah, I'd say it's because my granddad talked to me a lot about World War II, and just because I read a lot of history books and things like that. Planes124 said, do you have any desired masks? How many masks do you own? In terms of masks I own 61 individual masks, and that's not counting industrial respirators like my 2 3M masks. If I counted those it would be 63, and that's also not counting duplicates. If I count duplicates that's well over 70, because I have like more than one S10, I've got more than one GP5, things like that, but 61 individual proper military masks or civilian masks. Do you have any desired masks? Yes, I'd definitely like some more American masks, but as I've said a lot of times before, the problem with American masks is they have export bans on them, so you can only really get them if you're lucky enough to find somebody who's selling them outside of the States. Who's selling them for a reasonable price. Now and again on the UK eBay I do see American masks for sale. if they're a sensible price, I pick them up, like I have done with a couple of American masks. Most of the time people want far more than they're worth and they're not in good condition, so I don't buy them. I'd also really like a Canadian C4, because Jacob Dagger says that's the best gas mask ever made, and I'd really like to see one. Probably the non-defective model, because as far as I'm aware they had a first batch of them that were defective, then they changed the colour and remade them, and then they've been like really good masks. I'd really like one, but again I've never seen one for sale in the UK that's not like £200+ and I'm not paying that for one. Lewis Arthur said, what was your inspiration for starting your YouTube channel? Just because I thought it was interesting. Prior to this channel I've had other channels that I've deleted. I deleted them myself. You know, because I got sort of fed up with them. But I started this channel off, and then also because YouTube let me monetize this one, because they changed the rules around 2012 when I made this channel. That was a bit more of an incentive to keep going with it, because the start of it was just like beer money I'd get off this, and now it's like my wage I live on, rightly or wrongly. So, but also just because I had a lot of stuff and I kind of found it interesting to document them. Because like with the gas masks, you know, there's not that many people really who talk about gas masks. You like hear about gas masks in like documentaries and that, but not too much outside of documentaries. So, you know, I thought some of this stuff would just be interesting to talk about. I'll also say, I think somebody did mention this as well in another thing that might be later in the list. There's a lot of other channels that I'll come to later on that, you know, like I watched their stuff and I thought, wow, their content's really good, I'd like to make stuff like that. Not, you know, like ripping off their stuff, but, you know, I thought, you know, there's not enough videos people make like this, so I find that interesting. Uncle Vasha said, if I'm pronouncing that right, why you have glasses, I wonder if he's Slavic, why you have glasses in some videos but in others you don't? Yeah, these are my glasses, they're my current ones, Ray-Ban frames. It's because I'm short-sighted, and if you don't know about glasses or eyesight terminology, short-sighted means that you can see close up fine, but at distance things start to blur. You can be more or less short-sighted. So if I'm reading off a piece of paper, you know, I can do that with or without my glasses on. If I'm trying to read something at a distance, so like when I'm driving, I'll have glasses on. If I'm shooting a weapon without a scope, I tend to need my glasses to see the target properly. If I'm shooting a weapon with a scope, I can actually focus the scope to my eye and I don't need my glasses to shoot, although I'll sometimes keep them on. So it's more of a convenience thing having glasses on, but I don't need them for up close stuff, so it really depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing videos of gas masks where I'm taking a mask on and off, I obviously don't want my glasses on for that. So that's why I either have my glasses on or off, but for the most part I don't need them. The good news is, over the last few years my eyesight's actually improved slightly rather than getting worse. So I've not had to change my glasses in 2+ years now. And, you know, the couple of years before that, my glasses, you know, my eyesight barely changed as well. When I had an eye test recently, they said, you know, your vision's improved ever so slightly, you know, we could do some more glasses, and they showed me with the, like, opticians things they put on, what the glasses would look like if I had them, and they were such a tiny improvement over these that I thought there's no point in me paying more money for more frames. I might do that a bit further down the road, but at the moment I like these frames. I ended up obviously paying a fair bit for them. There's something like £200, but I thought I wear glasses every day, so that money, you know, is well spent really compared to some things I blow my money on. So yeah, but that's why I wear them, or sometimes and sometimes not, just because, you know, it's, do I need them or don't I need them? And I can get on without wearing my glasses quite a lot, so when I don't need them I don't have them on. Right, okay, the next question is from Sticks, and he says, what is the worst gas mask you used? Right, definitely the worst ones I've used are the like little dust masks, although we're probably not going to count that as proper gas masks, because I've done videos on this, but dust masks are awful because they don't give you a good face seal, and you end up getting a false sense of security, and inhaling lots of crap when you're wearing them, so they are not good. But what's the actual worst gas mask? I'd say it's probably my Hungarian M71, I think the name is. I think the M69 and M71 are pretty much the same masks from what I've heard. And it's basically, they're very similar to the German GM30 mask from World War II, or prior to World War II. But they were made, you know, like in the 1970s. So it's like you've had a design that was okay for the time, then you've remade it, you know. And it's kind of an interesting mask, don't get me wrong. it's a weird looking mask. It's interesting in that regard, but it's a really crap gas mask because it just doesn't make a good face seal, and the strap system's really weird. So yeah, I'd say that's my worst gas mask I've used, as far as I'm aware. I might think of one later on that's not a bit worse, but... Lapbrick says, I know you're British, but do you like Donald Trump? Yes, if I was American, I'd have voted for Trump. Definitely wouldn't have voted for crooked Hillary. You know, she's got so many skeletons in her closet. It's ridiculous. I mean, whether or not Trump's doing a good job now and keeping all his campaign promises, I don't know, but the thing you have to bear in mind with most countries is you have what's called a deep state, and that's that regardless of who you elect, there's kind of old people in power that always want the same stuff pushed. So Trump's definitely the better choice than Hillary, but I don't think in some ways there's all that much Trump can do, because there's people behind the scenes that actually have more power than the President in the United States. But yeah, I'd have voted for him, you know, and I like how straightforward he speaks and how many people he upsets. I think that's great. The Two Friendly Gamers said, here's a question. Do you think schools should have gas masks, respirators of some sort, and why? Yeah, I think civil defence is pretty much lacking everywhere, so yeah, I think, you know, like how GP5s are made for the Russians or Soviets, I think a really basic, kind of simple to use gas mask that just does the job, like the Israeli 4A1, should be made for pretty much everybody. If I was in charge of the country, I'd definitely issue everybody with masks and filters, but as said, the reason governments probably don't do that is because it means that you'd be able to protect yourself from tear gas and things like that. So yeah, I think they should, because I think there's, you know, there's lots of bad safety rules, but I'd go further than that because I'm somebody who, you know, agrees with the Second Amendment in America. I think people should be allowed to carry firearms for self-defense, so any sort of self-defense gear I think everybody should be entitled to own, because if you ban legitimate people from using them, only criminals have them. But yeah, for schools and other things, I think gas masks should definitely be there in case of emergencies, you know, and other equipment as well as gas masks. Len H said, what is your favourite period of history? Very tough one between the Cold War and sort of medieval, sort of the Dark Ages history. Medieval history I find really fascinating because of the kind of feudal system and sort of all the weird siege engines they built. You know, it's just kind of a fascinating period of history where people had quite backwards beliefs, but they were, you know, inventing some quite elaborate ways of killing each other, which I think's, you know, quite fascinating, to be honest. But Cold War, because, you know, that's where lots of the gas masks I collect come from, lots of the rifles I like come from the Cold War, things like that. But if I had to pick one, I'd go with medieval, but it's harder, you know, at least on the budget, to collect a lot of medieval stuff or get reproduction stuff, so that's why I don't do it so much in my videos, but I do find the medieval period fascinating. If you're into medieval stuff, I definitely recommend the game Stronghold. The original Stronghold and Stronghold Crusader, both are quite accurate depictions of siege warfare, and they're quite interesting and fun games to play, so yeah, definitely those. Centric Mims says, what is your favourite kind of cheese? Cheddar. But I really like the squirty spreadable cheddar as well, especially if you get Hovis crackers or like digestive biscuits, sweet digestive biscuits, and you spread the cheese on the biscuits. I find that really nice. But yeah, cheddar, probably strong cheddar cheese is probably my favourite type of cheese. I definitely like the cheeses with a lot more of a strong taste rather than the thing. Also, I think I've cut a lot of these questions down to make them fit on the sheet, so, because some people said, like, what's your favourite kind of cheese? My favourite kind of cheese is this. I've just cut them down so I can fit them all in, and the video doesn't go on forever. So yeah, cheddar cheese is my favourite. Baptist Hardy said, what is your most proudest gas mask and why? I guess you mean what gas mask am I proudest to own, because I doubt the gas mask's proud, because I don't think they have feelings as far as I'm aware. Good question. Probably I'm going to say the XM28 because it's hard to get American masks in Britain. That cost me about £100 when I bid on it. And it's a really interesting, cool looking mask. And as I said, I hate cheap filter masks, but I do like the XM28. It's a special kind of mask. Runner-up would be my two British C7 respirators because again they're quite rare. I can't wear them in anything. As I said before, my favourite gas mask if I had to use them would be my CT12, followed by either the FM12 or my Forshida A4. But in terms of actual, yeah, like ones I'm proudest to have in my collection, definitely the XM28 or my two C7s. Dat Hypernova said, what do you plan to do with your channel in the future? Got any plans for more expansive videos? I'd definitely like to keep doing videos. I've been doing a daily video now for a couple of months, actually another on Sunday, like this one's going in the 1 PM time slot. If I could get more people to help me do videos, I'd definitely like things with better camera work, you know, more interesting things. If I had the budget and the sort of resources to do it, I'd like to go to a lot of museums and look at weirder stuff. It exists, but I don't really have the funding or anything to do that. So for the time being, it's going to mostly stay as it is, just when I can afford more gas masks. I don't really have space for them, to be honest. Add more masks to my collection, but that was another thing where people said, how many masks do you own? As I said, I own 61 proper gas masks. The reason because people keep saying, do a video where you show every one of your gas masks in one video. I really can't, because I wouldn't have the space to lay them all out and film it. And it would be a pain in the arse getting absolutely everything out to film it. Because lots of my masks, as I said before, aren't stored as well as I'd like to store them. Just because of how much space it ends up taking up when you've got so many masks. They have to just be crammed absolutely everywhere. So, yeah, if I had, like, the budget and time and everything, I'd like to go and look at weird things in museums and that. I definitely, as I think I've said a few times, like to go to the States and do a lot of shooting, but at the moment that's not within a budget range. I think that's going to come up later on in the question, but yeah. I definitely like to improve the content and quality of my videos, but it's a, you know, budget and time restraint thing, so it will just have to be done when it gets done. Alright, a good question from Tumbo1984. In previous videos you have listed what you believe you think would be good shit hits the fan items and gear. In light of current events, do you think you would change anything, and if so, what and why? And he said, you know, don't answer that if you think you'll get in trouble for it. What we'll do is we'll just talk in hypotheticals, as we always do in shit hits the fan things, because obviously I'm not going to start gunning down random people, but if those people are trying to kill me, that changes things, doesn't it? And there's no law. Depends if you mean it as an EDC thing, Tumbo, or as an actual, like, actually just, you know, in the house. Because, I mean, when I've done previous shit hits the fan videos years ago, I've done, like, things about crossbows. I mean, my current go-to crossbow would be my £105 one now, because it's a really good mix of power and easy ability to load it. Whereas, you know, prior to that I had £150, so that's definitely, we downgraded the power because you don't need that much power for self-defense in close ranges. A thing this is going to come up again somewhere, but my Fairbairn Sykes knife, it's a reproduction one, but it's a very good quality reproduction one. That is definitely something that would be in a shit hits the fan kit, because it would be a very quick way to stop someone who was attacking you, because it's got a very good point. So, yeah, you might have to be a bit more specific, Tumbo, if you want, you know, like a more generalised thing, but yeah, crossbow, £105 now for the thing, you know, for energy, for the crossbow, and yeah, a few more different type of bladed items, I guess. I've got the riot shield now as well, so that could come in handy. What I would like to get, if I see one for a good price on eBay, because they're not always sensibly priced and often you can't find them, is one of the round police riot shields, like the ones that are more like a medieval size shield, just because that's a lot lighter, takes up a lot less space. Not as good for full body protection, but you could definitely use it with a machete and, you know, the shield for a good kind of, like, almost medieval sort of protective. And of course, if somebody has thrown acid at you or some sort of horrible chemical, the shield you could use to block that. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, ask it again and, you know, specify a bit more what you want me to answer it with. B&B Craft says, are you ethnically English? Yes, like most people in this country, I'm a mix of Anglo-Saxon and Celtic, or Celtic. Because, yeah, I've got people in my family who are Irish, but I barely know them. But for the most part, yep. As far as I'm aware, I've not paid a load of money to have one of those DNA tests done, but as far as I'm aware, I am totally Anglo-Saxon and a bit Celtic, so Celtic, whatever. So yes, a native British person, an Anglo. Okay, Twisted Individual 2077 says, what is your favourite British gas mask? Also, what are your views on the British Empire? Favourite British gas mask? Are we gonna... So this is where... Do I include ones that are only used by the British Army, or do we include ones made by Avon that haven't been used by Britain? Because if we're talking about Avon full stop, it'd be CT12 as I said before. If it's ones that have been used, the S10. The S6 comes very close behind the S10. I actually visually prefer the S6. I think it looks quite a sinister mask, and because of like the Iranian embassy siege and everything when the SAS used it. But yeah, for one in actual service, the S10, just because it was a really well-rounded mask, you know, did everything right. As I've done in a long video as well, I don't really like the GSR that replaced it because it was kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They added some nice features but made the mask really heavy and clunky, and you know, it didn't need all the features it had. They should have just stuck with S10s or upgraded to FM12s. I like things like the Mark V mask as well. I think that looks very cool, but some of the Sieb Gorman masks are really interesting as well, but I don't really have them like the VistaVision kind of ones. If I see again one of those for a good price on eBay, I'll pick one up whenever I bid on them. They've gone out of my bidding range really for them. The ones which have like the briefcase with the filter in and then like the big lens. You asked me what my thoughts were on the British Empire, because I almost skipped over that. That depends, because technically, obviously, colonising people isn't a very good thing to do, but some of the countries that were colonised by Britain were quite happy to have been colonised by Britain, because since they've become independent, they've really gone down the tubes. So it's hard to say. I think it's one of those things you can kind of be proud of, but at the same time you have to know that the British Empire did do a lot of pretty dodgy shit, so especially the East India Company. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of good as a historical thing, but I don't think you'd really want to bring back a lot of the elements from it, if that makes sense. Mr. Jeffrey2486 says, what is your favourite game? Oddworld Abe's Exodus. Played that to death on the PS1. You can get it on PC as well on Steam really cheaply. There's a remake of that coming out soon called, not New and Tasty, that was the last one, Soulstorm. So I'll be looking forward to that. If you want my second and third favourite games, that will be Time Splitters Future Perfect and Stronghold Crusader. There's lots of other games I really like as well, but if I had to just pick my 3 favourites, that would be those. But my favourite game is definitely Oddworld Abe's Exodus. If you haven't played that, check it out. If you're one of those people that struggles to play old games because that you've not aged perfectly, you might have a bit of trouble with it, but it's much better than the sort of crap games that get made today. Richard Tricky Dick Nixon says, what's your biggest collecting regret, such as passing up a good deal, breaking an expensive item, etc.? I broke, this is really irritating, I broke one of my cameras, so while that's not a collecting regret really, I did break a camera, which is probably the best answer to give you. It was my good slow motion camera, the Casio one. I had it on a tripod. We were doing a slow motion video where we were breaking pumpkins. I had the riot shield in front of the camera, and we were throwing bits of pumpkin at the riot shield, so you got like this cool first person thing of a pumpkin slowly coming in. The videos on YouTube, hitting the riot shield and splattering. One of the times the pumpkin hit the riot shield went backwards, smacked the camera, and it broke the motor in the camera that zooms in and out, so now the camera doesn't work. So unfortunately, yeah, that was annoying because I paid over 100 quid for that, for a second-hand one. And again, I'd have got a lot more use out of that doing slow motion videos, but sadly it's kaput. And yeah. In terms of regrets on collecting, there's a lot of stuff on eBay I add to my watch list. I mean to put a bid on it and I always forget, so there's definitely things I could have probably won bids on that would have been cool, but I've forgot to bid on them when the bid's about to end. Worst Coffee Ever says, would you ever consider moving over here to the States? I'd love to move over to the States and actually have freedoms and not live in a dictatorship like the UK. Politically correct dictatorship like the UK. However, of course, it's a question of visas and money. I could not afford to do that. Saying that though, house prices in rural America are much cheaper than you'll ever find house prices for here, so it swings and roundabouts. But of course, if I could move to the US, I would love to live in a state where there's good personal freedom and gun laws, so you could actually own some land and shoot on your land. I'd absolutely love that, but sadly I'm stuck in the UK. Okay, so what's my next question? Lance Corporal Cook says, are you ever going to go back and do more gameplay videos, similar to the Stalker videos from a while ago? It's one of those things I'd like to do, however, there's 2 factors. One, lots of people don't watch them, which is quite irritating. because often I'll put a lot of effort into doing a video and then nobody watches it, and then if I see a trend of a particular kind of video doesn't get watched, I just sort of stop making them. And the other thing is that sometimes I can't really be motivated to do gameplay videos and stuff like that, because there's so many channels on YouTube that do video game stuff, and I always kind of find I think I've got a lot of good ideas about games, and then when I end up playing them and trying to do videos, I'm sort of So I might do more videos. If they do, they'll go on as bonus videos, but I can't really promise anything. I'm definitely not going to rule it out, but it would have to be something that motivates me to make a video. Ryan Murphy says, politically, what side are you on? Do you go to surplus stores? That's two separate questions. Do I go to surplus stores? As I've said, I buy most of my stuff on eBay. I do like to go to surplus stores and have a look around. However, the quality of surplus stores can really vary, so some are really overpriced and the stuff's not in good condition. Others you can get a bargain. So I go to more surplus stores if there were more local ones. There aren't that many close to me, they're a bit out of the way, so I'd have to spend a bit on petrol going to them. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question on that one. Do I go to surplus stores? Yeah, if there's one about, I'll go in there, but whether or not I'll pick anything up from one, I don't know. And politically, what side are you on? That's an interesting question, really, because I tend to think of myself as quite centrist, but in the sense that I think most political ideologies have sensible things with them, like ideas on them, but I think when you go too far on a political identity, you end up going like full retard. So it's like a bit of socialism is good. I don't think anybody would disagree. Well, people would disagree, but I don't think most people would disagree if you think about it too logically, you know. That having some sort of benefit system for people who get a bit screwed over is bad, you know, all those sort of things. Helping disabled people is bad, you know. I think in most, you know, socialism like that is good when it's on a smaller scale. When it goes to full-on communism and you start murdering people because they don't agree with your political ideals, that's wrong. You know, I agree with nationalism, as in each, you know, people, ethnic people, whatever, both civic and kind of ethnic nationalism, each sort of group of people should be entitled to their own homeland. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But again, if you go to the state that then we need to kill everybody who's not us, then yeah, that's a bit shit as well, isn't it? So that's why I tend to say I'm a bit centrist. Like, I tend to think in an ideal world I'd be libertarian, where you've got a proper free market and, you know, proper individual rights. But little bits of each ideology probably are quite good if you had a good mix and match. Nations where the governments compromise on their things are generally the better ones, not where you go so far extreme in one direction you end up killing people or making everybody homeless and everything else. So I'd say politically that's where I am. Hugh Mack says, how many lighters do you have? Loads. I haven't bothered counting them. Here's an entire box full of lighters. I've got more on the shelf over there. You know, electric lighters in various places, so 40 odd or so I'd guess, and that's depends if you count duplicates or I bought multi-packs of certain lighters or not, so loads of lighters. Afraid I can't really answer that without counting them, and I'm not really going to be motivated to count all my various lighters, but I've got a lot. If you're really interested, look at my lighters playlist and then count up each time a lighter gets shown in a video. Ranger515 says, how did you start of your channel? I guess he means start off your channel. What kind of software do you use to edit, and do you have any tips, advice for people aiming to review gas masks in military like you? First of all, if you're going to be reviewing stuff, make sure you're interested in this. I think this is the problem a lot of channels have. They start off doing something because they think the money's there or something like that, or they want a really quick fame fix or something like that, and then they start reviewing it and they're like, oh, I really can't be asked to do this, but I want the money, and then they always quit. So make sure you're definitely interested in doing it. I'd say kind of have a personality, because I think a lot of YouTubers I end up watching are ones because I find if they're talking about something interesting, regardless of what it is. What kind of software do you use? You get Sony Vegas, and then there's a cheaper version of Sony Vegas. It's called something like Sony Movie Studio or something like that. I think they've changed the name several times, but if you look on Amazon, it's normally about £30 to £40. It can do most of the things Vegas can do, but it's a lot cheaper. And for the type of editing you need to do on YouTube, it can do absolutely everything perfectly fine and a lot more, and it doesn't cost much either. So I'd recommend that. And how did you start off your channel? I've kind of already mentioned that. I just had a load of stuff, I thought that would be cool, let's do videos on it. So hopefully that answers your question. but my main advice is make sure you're interested in what you're doing and stick with it. Don't expect overnight fame. If you do it for the fun of doing the videos more than anything else, I'm sure you'll be motivated to keep going year on year, making lots of good videos. Average Alex says, what is your favourite military vehicle? So, I take it this includes tanks and everything. Does it include helicopters? Right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll say what my favourite plane is, like, you know, and all stuff like that, because I can't really think off the top of my head what I'd pick over everything. So, my favourite plane would probably be the Ju-87 Stuka, because there's a siren on it. I really like close air support planes. If you wanted a jet one rather than propeller, A-10 Warthog, because both are sort of CAS planes. For helicopters, the Hind, definitely, the Me-24. Just because it's a really cool looking helicopter. It was a jack of all trades helicopter that did everything well, has loads of armour, goes really fast, carries lots of munitions, and it can transport troops as well, so what a cool helicopter. Favourite tank? Maybe one of the T-72s, or T-90. I quite like a lot of the Soviet kind of stuff with tanks. Favourite APC would be the BTR-152. It's a pretty retro one, but look into it, it's quite cool. A lot of nations used it for a very long time. So I'd say as far as favourite military vehicles, I hope that answers your question, because I can't really pick one over everything, but I'd say plane, Stuka and Warthog, helicopter the Hind, no question about that, tank probably one of the better models, the T-72, and APC BTR-152. Bending Rodriguez says, do you practice your Russian accent in the mirror because it's pretty good lol? No, I don't really practice it in the mirror, comrade. I just sometimes do stupid voices for the sake of stupid voices. As I said, this might not be very good Russian. It might be somewhere else in Central or Eastern Europe. You know, because I can also do the German or the stereotypical German accent. But no, it's just a kind of stereotypical accent, so they're quite easy to do. You know, it's not a convincing one, but they're easy enough to do. Worm91 says, my question is, do you carry a gas mask with you at all times? If you do, how do you conceal it? I've done a video on this. I've got a couple of different setups for them. Like, I have a canvas carry bag, yes, it is canvassy, which has got, you know, like filters in, my CT12, and a sort of NBC poncho. But I've said there's different ways of carrying it. You can put them in rucksacks, but most of the time if I'm not at home I'll have something, because I also have respirators in my car boot as well, so yeah, most of the time I do carry them. They're not always really concealed, but I don't really care. Cancerous YouTuber number 4723736 says, are you happy about Britain leaving the EU? That would be definitely a yes. And do you think there will be any impact on buying gas masks and militaria? I think it's going to be crap regardless, because we've had awful government after awful government in Britain, and there's nothing you're going to really be able to vote to change, because we don't have any eligible parties anymore, because the only good party we've had recently is UKIP, and now they're just squabbling amongst themselves rather than making policies up. So I don't think it's going to have any effect on buying and selling gas masks and things like that, because we've already had the stupid deactivated laws changing. Our government wants to ban more knives and bullshit like that. But are you happy with Britain leaving the EU? Yes, but they're doing a really bad job of leaving, aren't they? And I think what's going to end up happening is they're going to betray everybody who voted to leave, and they're going to leave the EU technically, but still be a member of the EU. So that's my pessimistic view on them doing that. Jerry, with an E, J-E-R-R-E, says, if you would make a meme, what would it be? I've already made a meme, funnily enough. You can choose not to believe this if you don't believe this, but a while ago I had a friend who had a YouTube channel called the Iron Tyrant, I think it was, and I made a video for him, because I did a few videos on that channel, although it wasn't actually my channel, but I did a video called Meet the Bandits, which is kind of the thing where a lot of the cheeky-breaky stuff started. Some of it was prior to that, but this was a video where I got that weird Russian hard bass, like, music video. I muted the music on it. I put the bandit radio music from Stalker Clear Sky on, and put random bandits, you know, like shouting cheeky breeky and the other stuff they shout. And on this channel I've also done 2 videos called Bandit Dance. If you haven't seen those, look them up, which is dancing stupidly with gas masks and other Soviet surplus equipment on, in kind of like abandoned places, with the bandit radio music playing. So yes, I have made MIMs before. I have a feeling I've done some other things as well that have become popular, because with the Cheeky Breeky one, before I'd done Meet the Bandits, there was kind of people, I think K and V on 4chan, that would post Cheeky Breeky in text, but it wasn't a big thing. But Meet the Bandits, I think, know your meme credits as doing it, and I am actually the person who's made the video, so you can believe me or not, but I swear I am telling the truth on that. So there you go. Okay, the next question is from Brotherhood Paladin, and he says, do all green Soviet gas mask filters contain asbestos, or is it just the GP5 ones? As far as I'm aware, all Soviet filters contain asbestos that have a particulate filter in, which is basically all of them. My advice to you would be not to breathe through a Soviet filter. The only ones that might not would be industrial filters that only have charcoal in, but an old filter like that isn't going to do anything to protect you from anything, so don't use Soviet filters full stop is my advice on that one. And similarly, Raging Kid asked me, have you ever breathed asbestos in? I'm sure I have. I've worn old gas mask filters that are probably a bit dodgy, not knowing what's in them. I've used GP5 filters and stuff like that before. Where I used to work, there was asbestos everywhere in the building. It was technically safe because it was behind cement and things, but the building was also falling apart. So yes, I am sure I have breathed asbestos in at some point, but no, I do not have lung cancer. Asbestos takes a long time to do serious damage to your lungs. I've had chest x-rays done over various other things, and I've not got clouding on my lungs, so if I've inhaled some it's not much, but I'm sure I've come into contact. An interesting number for you. I read this on an asbestos related charity's cancer website, funnily enough. Apparently, when an autopsy is done in Britain, I think it's like something like 90+% of bodies with an autopsy carried out, they find asbestos traces in the lungs. It'd be less than 1% where that asbestos went to an illness, because lots of people end up inhaling asbestos and never realising it. It's only when you inhale a significant amount that it damages you, but you obviously don't want to inhale it. It's kind of like playing Russian roulette, really. It's like saying, yeah, this thing is only going to damage me if I inhale a certain amount, but, any amount could damage me. No, just don't do it, full stop. If you come into contact with a bit, I wouldn't worry too much, but you don't want to put yourself in the way of danger, that kind of thing. 03-269 says, in the event of a nuclear war, would you help people out, the ones that aren't trying to kill you, or would you rather every man for himself? I'd help people in my immediate family. I wouldn't help anyone else, because you don't know if they are going to try and kill you or not. And if you've got, if you've stocked up a certain amount, like a month's worth of food and water, if you then having to start divide that between more and more people, it's going to run out fast. So, for your own good, you wouldn't help other people unless you knew them very well. They should have helped themselves. Angelo Friscone, or Frizone, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, if an opportunity ever arose, would you want to fire an actual working FAL or AKM? Very good question. That's a difficult one. You've got the AKM, which is like the world's best known rifle, the AK-47, or you've got the FAL, the right arm of the free world. I think I'd probably go with the FAL though, just because Britain used it for quite a long time, and it's one of those really cool rifles. So yeah, I'd say the FAL. It's a very tough one. There'd be some guns, if you said one of those between another, I'd pick, the ones on the list really, instantly, but with a FAL or AKM I have to think about it a bit more. I would say the FAL, but I'd love to have both. OG Mafia says, are you in a relationship? No, not currently. I was a while ago, but no, not at the moment, and I don't want to be in one if I'm made miserable from being in one. So, yeah, if it works out between two people, it works. If you're in one and it gets a bit shit, my advice would be to leave it. So, there you go. That is my answer to your question there. Weapon collector. If we could legally carry any weapon, excluding firearms, and were allowed to use it in self-defense in the UK, what would you pick? Right. So, I could carry my Fairbairn Sykes on me anywhere legally, and I was able to use it legally. I'd definitely carry this on my belt at all times, because it's one of those knives where if you had to use it, as I've said, it gets the job done. It's designed only really as a killing blade, so if you had to use it in self-defense, that would work well. But if you're allowed to carry absolutely anything on you, I will show you what I'd actually rather be using. So if I could have absolutely anything that isn't a firearm, I'd have my falchion on my belt. It's about 2 foot long, so that's a manageable length. It's not too long for me. Pay attention to the handguard. It's got the fighting sort of handguard on it, so you've got this bit here that protects your hand there from a sword blow coming in two places. You can actually punch with this, and obviously that will do a lot of damage to somebody if you hit them in the face with that handguard. It's got the sword trap on this side, so you can actually grab somebody else's blade using this. It's got kind of the pommely end as well, so you could do more damage again by doing that. So you've got a less lethal option of hitting somebody with it, and then you've got the business end here and the business blade here. So yeah, if I could use anything, it would definitely be the falchion. I think this needs an oiling by the look of it, so I will do that after I've done this video, a fresh coat of oil on it. But yeah, if it was going to be a case of the police might confiscate your blade and you'd never get it back, rather than carrying this on me, I'd carry one of my machetes. But definitely the Fairbairn Sykes at all time on my belt if I could legally carry any of these and use them in self-defence and I couldn't have a gun. Okay, so next question is Weapon Survival 94. He said, if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be? Mine would be the price of a pint. Well, I definitely agree that pints are stupidly expensive now. When I was 18 and if I went to the pub, so this is going back about 6 years, it was about £3.20 or about £3 a pint, which is still expensive if you're even older than me. But now you go to a lot of pubs and like £4.50 for a pint, getting close to £5. So yeah, that would be a good thing. I'd say definitely reduce the price of a pint. But if I could change one thing in the world, it would be we get rid of cancer completely, because you know a lot of good people die from cancer, especially it's really upsetting if it's kids and stuff. So I'd say, although yeah, you'd have more of a world's overpopulation problem that way, cancer would be the one thing. If I could get rid of it, I'd get rid of it, just because there's a lot of good people that die from it. And the problem with a lot of cancers are that, although yes, you can make lifestyle choices that affect it, there are a lot of people that get it who have lived relatively healthy lives, and they're just very unlucky and get it and die from it. So yeah, that would definitely be the one thing I'd change. Lance Corporal Stanton said, I have a question. Do you have any armed forces background? I ask this because you come across as someone who is an expert on identifying military equipment such as respirators, protective equipment, even certain firearms that have been used by the military in the past. No, a lot of my family were, but I haven't been. I'm actually medically unfit to serve with more than one thing, so no, I wouldn't. I've not been in the armed forces, but I do a lot of reading on stuff. I think I've done a video on it before, but I've got loads of books on stuff like medieval history, American Civil War, lots of modern sort of Cold War and modern conflicts and firearms stuff. So, and I read a lot of stuff online, watch a lot of videos from Americans or people who have been in the forces. I said I've had family members in there I've spoken to, friends of the family who've been in it. So yeah, I get the information from a lot of places, so I'm able to verify a lot of it's true. I find a lot of it interesting, but no, I'm medically unfit to serve. If I wasn't, would I serve? I don't know, because I don't agree at all with the politics of a lot of the recent wars the Western countries have been in, basically bullying Middle Eastern countries for oil and stuff like that. I think a nation's army should be used to defend that country and defend that country's interests, and not used as a kind of political leverage tool overseas. So yeah, I don't know. So that's my answer to that. And Nameless Goon, this is the last question, number 37, so I'll find out in a minute how long this video's been. Said, what kind of music do you like? You know, favourite bands, album genres, all that. Anything recommendations, I guess that should be any recommendations for fans that are interested in potentially new music. And an extra question, what is your favourite camouflage pattern? Favourite camouflage pattern is Flecton, that's why I've put it on for this video, in case you're wondering. I like the colour more of the Flecton legs. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the colour is actually different on the tops than it is on the trousers. So I like the trouser colour more, and my Flecton raincoat is a different shade. Again, I like Flecton when it's lighter. So what I'm going to say is, because I have two camos I really like Flecton, that's why I've included this. But I also really like Stricton, which is East German camouflage, so I really like both the West and Eastern camos. So Flecton is definitely my favourite camo, but I'd say Stricton's a close second. If I had to say favourite Eastern camo, that would be Stricton, favourite Western camo, Flecton. In terms of actual practicality, I think multicam or MTP, British MTP, is probably the best camo out there for like working in most environments. But in terms of the colour palette, I really like Flecktarn. What I'd really like is if they did Flecktarn in a few different colours, especially if they did one that was a bit brighter, you know, like the reds, so they looked a bit more red rather than brown. You know, but I kind of like it because it looks a bit autumny. It's a good pattern, it works close range because of the smaller dots. At longer range, those dots seem to form big clumps, so Flecktarn I'd say is the most effective camo pattern I've tested. If it was in the multi-terrain pattern, sort of multi-cam colours, I think it would work even better. But I like Strict-On as well, because that works really anywhere, and it's kind of one of those old school camos. But Flecktarn's my favourite camo. But to answer your question, what kind of music do I like? I like music in all sorts of genres, but I only like music if it's good. So I like kind of a lot of the heavier classical stuff, like some of Beethoven stuff, some of Mozart stuff. I like quite a bit of Bach as well, some of his organ stuff. But if you want more contemporary music, I like a lot of the sort of industrial or synth kind of stuff, because I like a lot of the John Carpenter's stuff he's done for his soundtracks. If you've heard of a band called Feinflug, it's spelled like Find Flug, but they're a German industrial band. I don't think they're really around anymore, but they did a lot of good stuff in the 90s. Again, that's quite heavy kind of electronic music, but it's quite good if you like that sort of thing. A lot of metal and prog rock stuff I like. If I had to name my favourite album, that would probably be Jeff Wayne's The World of Worlds. If you haven't listened to that, listen to that. They don't make music as good as that anymore. But yeah, I'd say like prog rocky kind of stuff, some soundtracks I really like, and classical and industrial. So my tastes all around, but I like it if it sounds good. If it sounds crap, I wouldn't listen to it. But I'm not really limited to genres in, you know, charge of how they sound. So thank you for all your questions. Apologies if I didn't cover it, but I'm sure this video has gone on for absolutely forever to do these 37 questions. If you want to ask a question, ask it again. I've replied to some people if I'm not really able to answer their question in the video. I did get, I think his name's Nordic Resilience. He's actually supports me on Patreon, so big thank you to him. He asked me, am I going to do a video on the War Emergency Guidebook, because everybody keeps asking about that. If I do a video on that, I won't be putting it on this YouTube channel just in case there's any repercussions from it. I will either put it on my VidMe account, which you should be able to find a link to somewhere if you want to check it out on VidMe, but what I might do is put it on Patreon so people who support me on Patreon can watch it, because it's a bit of a dodgy thing making that video, so at least then it's people who support me who end up seeing it. But I will do a video on it at some point, but I'll definitely make sure I don't put it on this channel just in case. So yeah, if you want to ask your questions, ask them again please, and then I will try and answer them. Apologies if I don't get round to doing them again a second time, but because I got over 200 questions, I wasn't expecting that many. But hopefully this answers your questions if you've asked them.